Call this, oh, there you go. I'd like to call this budget meeting to order. If everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. Before we get started and ask for public comment, Commissioner McGloin and I would like to just check through a few things about the 2025 budget. And when we are done with that, we'll ask you to come up if you'd like to give public comment. Just give your first and last name and where you live, and then you'll have 5 minutes to speak. On October 15th, Commissioner McGloin and I introduced a preliminary 2025 county budget after months of working on it. Before we begin this morning, or this afternoon rather, we just want to check through some facts. As you are all well aware, we are raising taxes nearly 33%. This is the first major tax increase since 2012, when the real estate taxes rose by roughly 37.5%. From 2013 through 2024, millage increased by 23%. Increases occurred in 2013, 2020, specifically to partly fund the pension, and 2024, which was roughly 5.9%. Since 2013, the county's operating expenses have soared 79%, from $91,542,597 to $164,499,454. During that time period, the county revenue only rose by 27%, and that was due to the failure of successive administrations to ensure that revenue matched expenditures. So essentially, as I've said at all of the budget hearings to date, this will be our fourth and final one, this is really just a simple math problem. The expenditures skyrocketed since 2013, and the revenue did not, and that's why we're in the position we're in today.
And when we took office on January 2nd, we started addressing foundational structural reforms well before we started working on this specific budget. And soon after taking office in January, we entered the state's strategic management planning program. Using a $100,000 grant from that program, along with county funds, we hired the financial consultant PFM to help guide us through 2024, recommend long-term budgetary changes and operational changes to increase efficiency and lower costs. We eliminated the County Department of Health because we discovered that it had been founded on a faulty financial premise that would impose the vast majority of costs on local taxpayers rather than on the state government. You may remember that previous administration had mentioned that it would be roughly an 80-20 split, 80% reimbursement from the state. Commissioner Gaughan and myself found out to that not be true. In fact, it would have been somewhere roughly in the 20%, 20, 25, 30% range reimbursement from the state. And by eliminating the County Department of Health, that alone will save taxpayers roughly $3.5 million a year.
Acting on recommendations from the financial experts that we hired, we instituted a hiring freeze, and we put a hold on all purchasing other than for public safety and for essential services. It's also important to note that the county now is operating responsibly for the first time in a long time. One of the major problems that Commissioner McGloin and I confronted upon taking office in January is that the previous administration had budgeted 12 months of revenue and 13 months of expenditures by leaving us $18 million, roughly $18 million in unpaid bills. We are now paying the county bills on time, and we will not carry over unpaid bills into 2025 other than minor ones that it's just because of the timing of when we receive them.
After we started the formal budget process this summer, we found that the projected structural deficit was more than $35 million. We managed to reduce that projected deficit by more than 20% to about roughly $28 million. We identified 90 full-time and part-time positions across 19 departments, almost 10% of the budgeted workforce that were funded but not filled. We eliminated those, producing more than $2 million in savings. This is a major operational reform because now if a position is not funded and filled, it does not exist and cannot be allocated funding without specific approval from us. Also, to reduce the projected deficit and slow the rise of the expense curve, we budgeted no raises for non-union employees in 2025 rather than the 2.5% raise that had become customary, a savings of roughly $400,000.
Excuse me. This budget also marks the first serious effort in recent memory to rein in the county's runaway health care costs. The county's health care premiums were scheduled to rise by 9% in 2025, or about $2.8 million. Our financial experts who work extensively with county and municipal governments statewide informed us that Lackawanna County has one of the most generous health care plans in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Our budget increases deductibles and co-pays for nearly 350 non-union employees, mostly in administration and management, and that includes myself and Commissioner McGloin. We won't know the savings until the current open enrollment period ends, but we do know that they will be significant. We also have cut overtime costs in this budget by $1.25 million and have called on the county prison and the sheriff's department to achieve those savings through better scheduling.
In 2025, we will also establish priority-based budgeting, a further effort to examine every aspect of county business and budget according to actual priorities rather than past practice. We will also implement CashFest, a system by which the treasurer should be able to extract far more investment revenue from the county's regular cash flow. We cannot budget a figure for that program at this time because it is new, but the results from other counties has really been encouraging. The budget is also a major step in finally funding the pension plan. Failing to fund the pension plan was a major factor in the county's recent credit rating downgrade by Standard & Poor's. Essentially, past administrations either put nothing towards a pension plan or a nominal amount. The effect it had was the minimum payment continued to grow. So think of it like a very, very large credit card bill, and you only continue to pay the minimum amount on it. Really didn't make much sense.
Finally, to wrap things up, an important context for every county budget is that most of the county spending is for crucial services that are mandated by state law, are fundamental to public safety, or both. More than 66% of Lackawanna County's employees are engaged in providing those essential mandated services, making it impossible to resolve our budget issue that we have this year, which started off at roughly $35 million deficit, by simply cutting services. And I would like to think that we've been very, very clear since the beginning that there was going to be no circumstance that we could cut our way out of this deficit. And when I talk about mandated services and essential employees, you're talking about our 911 center, our prison, our sheriff's department, our human services department, our Office of Youth and Family Services, and I could go on and on and on and on. And let me end by saying this. Commissioner McGloin and I certainly did not want to begin our 4-year term as county commissioners in our first budget by raising taxes nearly 33%. We are both raising our families. I have 5 small children. Commissioner McGloin has 2 small children. We both have 2 parents who are senior citizens, and we completely understand the frustration of having to pay more in taxes. But we promised back in January when we took over that we were going to be honest. We promised you that we were not going to sit up here, as other commissioners did, and just completely abdicate their responsibility, their fiduciary responsibility, to this budget and to this county. So we have given it to you completely straight. These are difficult decisions that we had to make, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and this is the first step to getting the county's financial house in order. And with that, we will now open it up to public comment. So if you would like to address the board, please come forward and just state your first and last name for the record, where you live, and then your 5 minutes will begin.
Joan Hodawan at Scranton. I'm a little disappointed that Commissioner Chermak is not here. These comments were written assuming he would be here. I know each of you are well-intentioned, but I have some comments and questions about both budget proposals. Start with you, Commissioners Gaughan and McGloin. You said that the greatest cost driver in the budget is the personnel costs, salaries, wages, health care, pensions, and so on. They account for 55+% of the operating budget. To that end, you proposed a hiring freeze. That makes sense, but I have to ask how aggressively you negotiate personnel costs with the county's unions. Can we continue to pay increased personnel costs, especially health care, when the revenue to pay for them, the real estate tax, does not increase at the same rate? That cannot continue. I got the impression that you, with PFM's help, scrutinized every line item in the budget. So imagine my surprise when I scanned those same lines. Let me give you 2 examples. Page 6, non-departmental expenses, admin. Vehicle lease expense went from $6,000 in 2024 to $719,800 in 2025.
I can explain that.
Not on my time, I
No,
only
I
have
won't,
5
but
minutes.
I can explain that.
Okay, please do. Page 21, human services. Full-time wages and salaries went from $66,127 in 2024 to $1,335,924. What is that all about? And what about the Penn Federal Credit Union? It went from $0 in 2024 to $203,500 in 2025. If we can't sell that building, can we at least find people to pay us rent for those spaces? And if Commissioner Chermak was here, this is what I would say about his proposals. He wants to reallocate $17 million in ARPA funds. If those funds have been committed but not spent, who is losing them? I would like to know that list. And on page 4 of his handout, he wants to eliminate 2 part-time positions in the Office of Youth and Family Services. On page 5, he wants to eliminate 17 full-time positions in the same office. Isn't the Office of Youth and Family Services gravely understaffed? And is its license been reinstated? I'd like that answer. And for all 3 of you, I understand the need to increase the real estate tax. I don't own property, but I pay it for a family member. However, you both need to be more transparent about your proposals. Is it too much to ask for a footnote on any change to the budget if a line item varies up or down by 20% or more? Remember, the devil is in the details. And by the way, the behavior I witnessed yesterday was deplorable, disappointing, and embarrassing. Given a choice, I would probably not vote for any of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joan.
Would anyone else like to address the board? Would anyone else like to address the board?
Tom Coyne-Manuka. My grandfather always said, don't watch your money, watch your health. One day, when I was watching my health, someone stole my money. It was my grandfather. I understood the body contends the former commissioners cooked the books. As hiding this, have you filed an ethics complaint on this as of yet because of them violating fiduciary responsibilities? You claim that it was all them and they hid this from the public. That should be brought up as an ethics complaint. Have you done your responsibility for filing against them, as it should be to protect the citizens from any malfeasance in office and continued malfeasance? I understand this body proposes that removal of 80 unfilled positions is a saving. I understand it represents control over filling those positions no longer on the books. but is it actually a savings? I made a check for the Lackawanna County in the order of $15 million and 3 cents. I'm tearing up that check. Have I now created myself 15 million and 3 cents that I never had? Eliminating an unfilled position does not create savings. If the 33% is going to salvage and put us on a firm foothold, once we get on that foothold, don't we have enough to resolve the issue? 33% with no expiration date is just becoming normalized future spending, with no hard cuts required in the future. If we're going to put a 33% and we say that will bring us up and current and proper, once we get to that point, we should no longer burden the citizens with an increased tax rate. So there should be a sunsetting on a 33% increase, or you know as well as I do that future spending will include the 33% that was meant only to capture up the past. It will become a tax for play money in the future. Have we considered ending retirement plans and swapping them out to 401k styles for any new onboarded employees? This has been done across the country in many places. Our retirement plans are horribly excessive. The only way to deal with that is to get off them and no longer make the county responsible for continuing to fund an overburdened retirement plan that indentures our children. You say that 66% are essential and 34% are not. Have you considered an emergency order to set a 4-day work week or plan a summer process to shut down non-essential services for 2 weeks in the summer just to recoup some of that money? I was going to bring up the same thing as Chermak with the use of unspent Recovery Act funds. Revenue loss in an SLFRF provision allows up to $10 million to be put towards similar actions. Revenue replacement is also part of that act that actually requires no documentation out of the ARPA funds. I think they should be looked at and trimmed back rather than personal glory of making some things better in the community by making Lackawanna County more marketable. Maybe lessening the 33% that tax burden will actually also make Scranton and the county more marketable. Thomas Jefferson understood the process. To preserve independence, we must not let our rulers load us with perpetual debt. We must make our election between economy and liberty, on profusion, lavish spending, and servitude. If we can prevent the government from wasting the labor of the people under the pretense of caring for them, they will be happy. Thomas Jefferson saw this over 200 years ago, yet here we are still in the same position. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? Sir, in the back? You could just come right up to the podium.
Frank Serafini from Music. First, I have to commend both of you on attending that meeting. It became a very, very hostile environment for you, but you managed to stay there and explain your position.
Thank you.
So that took a lot of guts. But anyway, my point is this, that at this point, I don't see any hope that we're going to be able to affect line items in the budget. So it's my opinion that there are certain things that might be considered. There's tax-exempt properties all over the county. Is there any hope that you might be able to negotiate some kind of support from those facilities. And the other thing is that in other cities that I attend that have, New York or anywhere you might go to a big city, they have an assessment on the room. We have so many, in music, I think we have 7 or 8 motels and hotels, and a room tax to support your deficit might be in order. And they call them a COVID rehabilitation assessment. Now, there are, now, when I look at the budget, I see a 90% collection rate, and you have a 9.66% not collected. Is there any way, and that's in both budgets, the one from 2024 to 2025, and I'm wondering if there's any special effort that might be taken to collect some of those taxes. Plus, I think that if this budget goes through with the 33%, and I know that the reassessment is on its way because, as I've said before, I feel as though I have assessors wandering around my property every day. It seems to me that there's got to be something for the people who are going to be displaced. I know that there's a home on Adams Avenue that just had received 11 people at night, and that's what's going to be happening. We're going to be displacing those families, as you heard yesterday from a woman. They pay their mortgage over all of the years while their husband's alive. He might pass away. Now you have a wife who doesn't work with a daughter or a child, and they're not going to be able to pay the taxes on that property. They'll be displaced. So I could see where family services will be increased. And the other item that I'm sure you're going to have to support is the fire company, because once these people start realizing they're losing their home, the city's going to be on fire because there's no other way they're going to survive. So I feel that there's got to be something for those families that are going to be displaced. If there's anything you could do to support some kind of a conditional reserve so that they can stay in their homes, I think that would be terrific. But I do appreciate the fact that you showed up at that meeting, because I would have left a lot early if I were both of you. So good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? Ma'am? Sure. If you'd like to speak, you can just come right up to the podium.
Good afternoon. My name is Sharon Soltis-Sperano. I live in La Plume. I just wanted to say that I'm not putting all this blame on you, because it goes way in the past. That's the starting point. And I'm going to address the big elephant in the room that nobody talks about. There should have been, and there could be, I researched it just yesterday, there should be a county fee against the landfills. We have 2. It could still be negotiated, didn't have to be negotiated at any specific points in time. Feel free to sit down and start a negotiation. Not only in the beginning was it the landfill with DeNaples and Keystone Landfill, and we have Alliance. We've got 2 landfills. We've got a cogen plant, and I think that's in Archbold, and then we have the gas plant in Jessup. We've got a ton of stuff there going on. And now it's making money like crazy because they're making money from our garbage. They're actually getting a fortune out of burning our garbage and everybody else's garbage they're coming in, getting it in that SI plant on Keystone Landfill, and then they're sending it up to the cogen and the other plant. Tons of money's being made there. The county's making this, nothing. Our taxes, technically we should pay nothing, but I think we'd all appreciate some sort of negotiation there. And it didn't have to be, it could have been done a long time ago, but it could be done at any point in time. So that should be something that should be looked at. The other thing too, the zoning in the assessor's office and the zoning reflected in Dunmore and Troop that I've looked at, especially with the landfill. I say this, I was a councilwoman in Troop. I dealt with the DEP, I dealt with zoning, I dealt with DeNaples. I know it personally. The zoning They have 715 acres now, DEP permitted at Keystone Landfill. That's industrial zoning. And I know True personally because it got all changed to heavy industrial, top of the line. I researched every tax parcel in the assessor's office for Keystone Sanitary Landfill. From Dunmore and Troop together, which is with total of 1,050 acres, 715 of that's supposed to be industrial to get that permit. I found 55 acres, 55 in Dunmore listed industrial. All that rest of the land is listed as, 90% of it is listed as vacant. You can't have a DEP permit granted to vacant land. Some of it's listed as residential. Now, I'm sorry, but this was transmitted, the zoning was done in Troop and changed. Lackawanna County Planning Commission was in there. They have all the maps. I checked all the maps online. It's all heavy industrial. How is the assessor's office having vacant land? And that's not the only place. All the junk cars off 81, vacant land. There's only X by feet, X by feet, X by feet as industrial. And it says they have cars that's miles long. My estimate, it's 1 mile by a half a mile. Now, this is crazy. Before you guys can proceed to work on a budget and increase taxes 33%, you need to guarantee every taxpayer that they are not just being taxed on their land, because I told you, my land, I have 95% of my land is vacant land. I'm taxed for my house and my vacant land. One figure. Residential, one figure. That's not what they have up there. And that's not legal. It's not legal, and this is not fair taxation under the law. So before you could look at that, I say we have a meeting and you bring in the assessor's office. We need to find out why that reflects all this vacant land. Dunham Drive, where they drive in with all the trucks, all they do is drive in with trucks. It is residential. 24 acres of residential land. I mean, this is insane. So am I blaming you? No, but I am giving you information. I am telling you, I am doing it. And they better not change it, by the way. Give you a little heads up. They better not change the stuff in the assessor's office on the QT. I already made extensive copies. So this has to be addressed. And the other thing, I'm sorry, I knocked somebody's Fox thing down. The other thing is that, oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Would anyone else like to address the board? Sir?
Aston White, Clark Summit. I'll let you answer while I'm up here because you haven't taken any notes, so there's no way you could answer all the questions that you've just been asked.
Yeah, we're taking
We are
notes. Everybody's
they're
taking notes right here.
So do you address all the questions that have been asked?
Well, we plan on addressing them at the end when everyone's done speaking, because some of these explanations can be quite lengthy, to be honest
Gotcha.
with you.
So first off, who decides when time the meeting is?
In terms of the
Today at
the
noon.
budget hearings, the commissioners. So we've had 3 meetings at 6 p.m.
Sure.
To accommodate people's work schedule, and then the last one, we decided to have 12 for those who might work at
Right,
night.
and this is the final one, correct?
Correct, and then there'll be 2 additional meetings, correct me if I'm wrong, where we actually vote on the budget.
Yeah, and I
correct?
think our Deputy Chief of Staff, Traci Harte, can take you through the
So in
process.
my
too, if
opinion, there
that's
shouldn't
okay.
be any during work hours, because I know I should be at work. Most of these folks should be at work, and I'm assuming there's a lot more people that like to voice their opinion, but they can't because they have to work. My other question is, how long does it take to get $25 million in debt before somebody throws a red flag? How long did this take?
The red flags were thrown, sir.
How long ago?
Well, the past few years. It was in the newspaper, it was reported, widely
Sure.
reported,
Sure, but-
and the CFO issued memos and to the commissioners.
A couple of years now, the CFO raised concerns.
And the 2 folks that were in your spot in the previous administration were the only ones that could stomp it or handle it?
Well, they're the commissioners, naturally, the way the form of government has been created, they are the ones with the power to make those decisions. They can be given advice, but then they have to take
Two
that
people.
advice.
Two people, and there's no one, or three people,
and
and
then
there's no one that can
There's
step
three
in, there's
people.
no one that could step in and,
Well, you have a county controller who provides a check and a balance. You have a treasurer. You have other independent elected officials. But in terms of the budget, that's really one of the main functions of county, or the main responsibility of county commissioners is to create a budget, a balanced budget.
and there's no one here in this room that's liable for what happened for the 25 million. Is that correct? Is that what I'm
I
understanding?
mean, look, we've been really clear that we think it just was a dereliction of duty on behalf of the previous administration and the previous commissioners in terms of kicking the can down the road over the last really 10 years. And then, I use the term robbing Peter to pay Paul. You could say it whatever way you want. But yeah, I mean, this could have been avoided, I think, if these problems had been addressed a long time ago.
Sure. And I'm new at this. My head's been in the sand for 25 years. I've never been to one of these meetings. I just pay, just
understand.
like most folks, just pay. What's the short story of the 6.3 that could be possible to the 33%? That's a humongous,
Yeah,
humongous gap there.
And we are going to address that at the end of this meeting.
Yes.
Because it requires a lengthy explanation. And we've gone through Commissioner Chermak's, what he put together. I wouldn't call it a budget, but what he put together. And there are glaring issues with it. And if we thought that there was something in there that we could do to potentially mitigate this tax increase, we would do it. But from what we've seen and what he's provided, the figures are off by millions of dollars, and there's a whole host of problems with it, and we will address that at the end in detail, and then we're going to follow up with even more detail once we've had time to go through it in depth. We only received it yesterday afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And sir, any other questions you may have, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the board?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Frank Scavo, Old Forge. I'm not from the government, and I'm here to help. The 2023 budget audit, is that complete yet?
No, it is not.
Okay, is the 2022 budget audit complete?
It is.
Okay. Can I get that?
It's
And
on the
also
web.
21?
It's on the website.
It's on the website. Okay, so Budgeting 101, I'm going to go in there and take a look, because like I said, I'm here to help you guys. Beating you up, it's not going to help. Offering solutions is going to help. Number one, consultants and outside people. Like Mrs. Soltis said, which she has a wealth of information. How about department heads? Do we call upon those guys? They know the people in the departments. They know the function every day versus consultants. Can they not come up with savings and cost-cutting measures and points that say, well, this is not a necessity. So inside this budget, Commissioners, here's what I can give you. I can give you a 5% cut in my department. I worked for a multi-billion-dollar international company. We never hired consultants. What we did is went back to the managers and department heads and said, guys, the economy's tough. Our stock is in the tank. Our sales are down. We can't raise prices like we can raise taxes eternally. So what happened? We had to go inside and look at what we needed and what we didn't need and said, well, maybe someday we'll restore these programs or these services, but right now, we're in austerity mode. That's what this county needs, because we don't have a revenue problem here. We have a spending problem, and it's that simple. There's two letters in this language that we have that make up the word no. It's no. Well, what do we need? We need some extra sound equipment or lighting. No, not now. This is not the time. We can't do that. So part of the simplicity of budgeting is just that. You're looking at department heads, you're looking at departments and saying, hey, guys, I need 5% across the board. I need 10%. And it's not for the commissioners to pick and choose these programs. The department heads choose the programs. You guys can't be the bad guys. The department heads know what is available for trimming, and believe me, there's got to be trimming. I can tell you this. Any tax increase that you put on to rental properties, it's a pass-through. It's going right down to the people that can't afford housing the way it is because they don't own their own home, and they're going to end up paying more. And it's also going to drive up the cost to this county because the programs that help them pay the rent, well, what's going to happen when the rent goes up? You're going to need to raise taxes more because what? These programs are going to need to pay for the tax increase that you imposed on those people on the program. So it's crazy. It's totally crazy. But like I said, we look at the budget, we get some savings. Okay, so your 33% tax increase now goes down to maybe 6 or 8, which is still crazy. Like I said, we have a spending problem, not a revenue problem. But Mrs. Soltis made a great point. Look, the homeowner's assessed, we have 5% uses of our property, and we're assessed at 100%. So 95% of that is unused, and yet there's properties on the books that what? They're not assessed properly. So, and adding insult to injury, when the reassessment comes through, we're going to have this tax increase on top of the reassessment. Show me anybody that their taxes went down. The colloquial saying is, look, a third go down, a third go up, a third stay the same. Show me anybody's property taxes that stayed the same or went down. Look at Luzerne County. Did we budget for the reassessment appeals? You know how that's going to be. Everybody's going to appeal a reassessment, so that's an additional cost coming to this county. So 23 seconds left. There's a lot to do, guys, and we're not here to argue and fight and call names, but listen, if you can do that and go back to your department heads and not hire all the consultants, you know what? That's, every penny counts at this point. So hopefully, you know, we could do that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
Hi, Commissioners. I'm also disappointed that Commissioner Chermak is not here because I had a few questions for him, which I can't ask now, but I'm hoping you address them at the end, because one of them was, where's the $17 million? Is that an accurate number or not? And I had requested,
We'll address that at the end.
yeah, I had requested 2 years ago when I was here for the information on where all that ARPA money was being spent, and no one could answer that question for me and never did to this point, along with the COVID money. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying about years and years of, you know, I was a commissioner, I know what happened. I can read these budgets, and this is just a worksheet. So I know there's other numbers that people aren't seeing. But one suggestion I would, please, that arts and culture, I think I agree with Commissioner Chermak on that. You cannot increase that. They don't need an increase in arts and culture. You're increasing it by 0.25, I guess, but that is, there's items in the arts and culture that can be lowered. And I was looking at some of the items that were increased for them, and they're questionable. You know, I mean, I don't know why we'd be giving more money to education when we already do that through the state. And it's just very frustrating when I see those budgets. And I'm not going to name them here because they're very controversial. So everybody can get a copy of the budget and look at the arts and culture expenditures. But I think you still have work to do on this budget itself. And I would appreciate you going back and kind of looking at some of it and some of the suggestions that were offered today, because I think some of them were good. Some of the people that were here today were very calm and had some good suggestions, and I do appreciate that they came here to discuss them with you. Yesterday was nothing but a sideshow, and it's an embarrassment. And there was no opportunity to ask questions, which you give at least 5 minutes. I mean, I gave however long, but every department, I know how the budgets work, and it seems to me you guys are all, you two are new. So I understand you getting a consultant in. Anytime you have a question about a budget, please feel free to ask me. I can give you an answer. I'm always willing, and I won't charge you anything. But it seems to me that nobody's been looking at the budget. And you said something at the last meeting I attended for you, that you didn't have any employees meeting on a monthly basis to go over the budgets for each department until you got back here. So for the previous 4 years, there was no meetings on department heads and what they were spending their money on? Did I hear that right in the last meeting? Could you please address that?
It's our understanding that there were not regular staff meetings between the commissioners and the department
Correct.
heads. And we changed that, but that was one of the issues.
There was one when I was here.
Correct.
I can guarantee you that.
As there should be.
And whatever happened, I think whatever happened during COVID, and I stood at this podium, I think 2 years ago and said that the budgets have been run amok, I was correct. So I'm sorry that you have to face this ire, but please try and lower this a little bit for the taxpayers, because they will be losing their homes if you don't. You still have a couple weeks to work on it, and I would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
I still am going to be coming to your next, you have 2 more meetings before you vote. When are you voting on this? December?
Our next meeting is November 6th.
You're going to vote on the final passage November 20th, and you're going to have the first vote in November 6th? Okay, so you have 2 more meetings for the public to come and either offer suggestions or meet with you. And I know I put a call into you, Commissioner Gaughan. I would love to sit down and talk to you. I have a few things that I don't want to discuss in public because, like I said, it gets very controversial. And I don't want it to happen here, what happened yesterday, because that's uncalled for. And, I also appreciate that you guys sat in and listened to what that was. It wasn't a budget hearing. It was just some suggestions that were offered. And obviously, I don't know where those numbers came from, because like I said, these are worksheets. These aren't the, if we brought a budget in here, it'd be this tall. Like, if, just for the public to understand, this is just a worksheet for you to look at, to kind of get an idea of where the money is being spent. This is nothing compared to what we actually have in expenditures. And budget, when you're a commissioner, you should be meeting every single day to talk about what you're cutting or what you're spending and what other things you can have to work on with the budget. And from what I understood yesterday, Commissioner McGloin said that you had only spoken with Commissioner Chermak less on your hand. You couldn't even count 5 times that he's met with you. That's uncalled for as well, because he's the watchdog. So he's supposed to be watching your work. And if that's not happening, it needs to start happening. And, I have no problem meeting with you and saying I don't agree with this or that, but I hope that I can help you and the public's suggestions help you, and the further people show up for more meetings in the next 2 weeks. That's really loud.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Commissioner McGloin, did you want to?
Yeah, thank you. I know a few people have brought up a number of things here today. And
Yeah, sure. Okay.
yes, I know a couple of things were brought up about ARPA funding, that 6.3% number versus the 33% number here. And I just have something I'd like to read and address, and I think it'll cover some of your thoughts and your concerns, especially about what was yesterday and the release of, I can't really even call it a budget at this point in time. So as the majority commissioners of Lackawanna County, Commissioner Gaughan and I have tackled the serious issues left behind by Commissioner Chermak's previous administration from the previous 4 years. And despite his claims of being in the minority in the previous administration, the truth is that every decision requires 2 signatures. And Commissioner Chermak's name, along with other commissioners from the previous administrations, are on countless actions that have directly impacted the county. Being in the minority does not mean that you're powerless, especially when you have the authority to influence decisions and allocate resources. Commissioner Chermak's narrative of being sidelined doesn't hold up when you take a look at his record. One of the glaring issues is the delayed budget that Commissioner Chermak only presented to us yesterday, weeks after it was due. It's extremely frustrating to see these delays when there are so many urgent matters at stakes. at stake. In just the last 11 months, Commissioner Gaughan and I have worked tirelessly to repair the damage and mismanagement that characterized Commissioner Chermak's tenure. One of the most concerning areas that has been included in his so-called budget yesterday is our Office of Youth and Family Services Department, a department that almost collapsed under Commissioner Chermak's watch under his previous administration. Commissioner Gaughan and I took immediate action to help turn this department around. It doesn't seem like he's willing to help turn it around now either with what he presented yesterday. In his budget, Commissioner Chermak wants to cut a number of jobs from the Office of Youth and Family Services Department, over 30. So the question I have for Commissioner Chermak is, does he not care about the health and well-being of families and children in Lackawanna County? And is he in favor of defunding the family and children of Lackawanna County? Commissioner Chermak also criticizes our approach to budgeting, claiming that we're overspending, but I want to be able to address the ARPA issue that was brought up today. And let's take a look at how ARPA funds have been used over the past 3 years since he had received those funds in 2021 and 2022. He wants to use $17 million in this year's budget that we don't have. On May 20th, 2021, the county received $20,363,358, and on June 15th, 2022, the county received an additional $20,363,358, totaling $40,726,716 in American Rescue Plan funds. Under Commissioner Chermak's leadership in his previous administration, he spent $24,881,628.20. And from his past administration, funds that would be allocated for this year, he has spent $8,392,921.46. That's this year alone from funds that were previously allocated from the previous administration. And outside of the very little in American Rescue Plan Act funds that we have left, he wants to use this so-called $17 million in ARPA funds that is being allocated towards projects that he and the previous administration already passed. I'll give you a quick example. The North Pocono Trail project that is currently occurring, that is covered by ARPA, it still has expenses that will be covered under this money. So if he would like to use this $17 million in ARPA funds in his budget then, well then we're gonna have to stop every single project covered under ARPA and, according to our solicitor, face potential lawsuits. Our commitment is to build a responsible, transparent, and effective county government, something Commissioner Chermak has had years and years to do but has failed to deliver. The difference is we believe that we're getting things done and that we're going to continue to work hard each and every day for the 220,000 here in Lackawanna County. Thank you.
Thank you, and I just want to add on to that briefly on the what Commissioner Chermak had gave us yesterday, late yesterday, that it is in fact not a budget. And to be honest with you, without being disrespectful towards him, but just being as honest as I can, it is so poorly put together that it actually was shocking for someone who's been a commissioner for now 5 years. And honestly, it was one of the most, I've been involved now in public service for almost 10 years. It was one of the most shameless displays that I've ever seen, and a complete abdication of any fiduciary responsibility that you would assume that the minority commissioner would have. Commissioner McGloin is correct. Commissioner Chermak would like all of you to believe, and all of you in Lackawanna County to believe, that there's $17 million in ARPA funds out there that he can just take and put towards this $28 million deficit. That is not true. That is completely false. There is not $17 million that we can use to plug this hole. And even if there was $17 million, it would be totally irresponsible of us to use that ARPA funding to cover this deficit. Because anyone with any financial sense that we've talked to, including our CFO, including the financial experts that we've hired from out of town to give us an objective point of view, they have said repeatedly, the reason why the county is in the position it's in is because it used one-time revenue sources. So, okay, We used the $17 million this year. Maybe that makes everybody in this room and in the county happy. Well, then what do we do next year? Where does that money come from? Where does it come from? He's not here to answer the question, but honestly, there is no $17 million. So right then and there, what he gave us yesterday is totally out of whack. The projected savings, and again, we're still going through this document, but the projected savings are totally wrong. As Commissioner McGloin pointed out, and really one of the most troubling things was Commissioner Chermak and his supposed team, they cut 28 Office of Youth and Family Service caseworkers. Now, if anybody's been paying attention, our Office of Youth and Family Services, the work that they do is so important and it is so crucial. And the agency, when we took over in January, was floundering, not because of anything they did, but because of a situation that really was just untenable. And cutting out 28 caseworkers means that there will be children in this county that do not get the services that they need. And Commissioner McGloin and I are not willing to put children and families at risk. I went out with the caseworker for an entire day months ago, and I can tell you that the amount of stress and the amount of emotional torture that they go through is unbelievable. And there's not a lot of them. There is not a lot of them. It is a huge problem here in Lackawanna County. So we're going to cut 28 Office of Youth and Family Service caseworkers, and he claims in here that there's going to be this big savings. He fails to tell the public, if anybody has taken a look at this that was there yesterday, that 80% of that cost is reimbursed by the state. So that's when I am trying to explain to people that all these figures are wrong, because he's cutting all these positions that are reimbursed 80% by the state government, and the county has to kick in 20%. I'll give you another example. Outside of the 28 caseworkers, he cuts 19 additional staff in the Office of Youth and Family Services, social workers, part-time caseworkers that we just approved in order to get the backlog down, which is, I think, somewhere in the area of 800 cases, because we were trying to get the license back. They lost the license under the previous administration for various number of reasons. So in order to gut that agency really is just shocking, being that he knows what has happened there, or at least he should have known. He should know better. I'll give you one other example of how just this doesn't make sense. He claims there's a big savings by cutting 5 911 dispatchers. The 911 dispatchers are funded 100% salaries and benefits by the state government. So you cut those 5 positions. Well, big deal. It's not a savings to the county. And Commissioner McGloin made this point the other night, actually last night at the public hearing. What if someone's not on the other end to answer your phone call? If your mother, your father, your grandfather, your grandmother, your child calls 911. Another problem that is not just in Lackawanna County, but all over the state, we don't have enough 911 dispatchers. So that's an essential position, even though we had a hiring freeze, that if someone comes through the door and wants to be a dispatcher at our 911 center, we are going to hire you because we need you. We need you to answer the phone. So it's just another example of figures that he's putting out there. And what bothers, I think, Commissioner McGloin and I, is that it's being totally disingenuous. We could have been disingenuous with you. We could have lied to you, and most of you probably would not have been here. We could have made everybody feel good. We could have kicked the can down the road like he does in his proposal. But we wanted to be honest with you, and that has created the ire of almost everyone that we've talked to and come in contact with. But as I said at the beginning of this public hearing, we promised everyone when we took office that we were going to be honest. And sometimes honesty makes people uncomfortable, and that's the position that we're in now. Also, on top of every other ridiculous thing that's in here, Commissioner Chermak, I guess to score political points with the employees here in the county, who we, by the way, value completely, he reinstates the 2.5% raise for non-union employees. We did not want to include that because we have to raise taxes 33%. So we didn't think it was fair for anyone at this point to get a raise. There are no raises included in the budget that we proposed. He proposes putting back the raises. He also proposes putting back over $700,000 in overtime for the sheriff's department. I mean, we're trying to cut overtime through better scheduling, not to hurt the sheriff's department, but to help the taxpayers and to try to become more efficient. Another example that honestly defies logic, and it shows you how lazy Commissioner Chermak was in putting this together and his team. They cut $300,000 out in postage. How are we going to send letters? By carrier pigeon next year? I mean, really, folks, that makes absolutely no sense. So that shows you the level of care that he took in putting his proposal together. Yeah, let's just cut $300,000 out. How the hell are we going to send the tax bills next year? How do we send mail out of this building? It honestly doesn't make any sense. The other thing that I had to laugh at was he's cutting $30,000 out in paper, in copy paper. Are we going to use chalkboards to communicate? Carrier pigeons again? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. He totally guts the IT department, which is fine, but we are trying to guard against a lot of issues in terms of cybersecurity. And there are increases in the IT department, and we will explain this in much more detail when we're completely finished with our narrative that we're putting together to counteract some of the things he's put in here. But there are increases that are out of our control. For example, our Microsoft license, it's going up significantly. That's not anything that Commissioner McGloin and I can control. He takes out several positions in the district attorney's office. I guess he's not concerned about crime any longer. People brought up assessment appeals. He eliminates, we're going to have all these appeals next year, we're assuming a large amount. He eliminates $24,000 out of the assessor's office in terms of the Board of Assessment and Appeals. We can't do that. We need that position to be in there to hear people's appeals next year during reassessment. So I could go on and on and on and on, and we will provide a counterpoint to everything that he's included. But this is the laziest document that I've ever read in my entire life. If he was actually serious, we would take him serious. If he actually had ideas that we thought, yeah, you know what, maybe we can implement this. Maybe we can pare down the budget a little bit. It would be malfeasance on our part not to take it seriously. But when you come forward and you want to eliminate the Director of Human Services, which, by the way, we need that position, eliminate the person who's in charge of literally multi-million dollars that come in from the state. He's advocating totally eliminating that position, eliminating the DUI coordinator for $52,000, which is 100% funded by the state government. So again, I can go on and I can go on and I can go on and I can pick this thing apart because there's that many holes in it. And I'm not going to bore everybody today, but these are just a few of the examples that should show you the frustration that we have because we're trying to be as honest as we possibly can. Here's the bottom line, and here's what I'll wrap up with. We have been at every public hearing. We had a press conference here where we took questions from all of the press early on. We have been sounding the alarm bell since January. We have been honest about the situation here, the financial situation. We have been telling people that this was coming, and I would hope that people would listen to us. And now we're here, and of course people are upset. And then Commissioner Chermak comes in at the 11th hour to try to make you believe that we can lower the taxes from 33% to 6%. And I'm here to tell you, and Commissioner McGloin is here to tell you today, that that is not possible. And if it was possible, don't you think that we would want to do that and come in here and be the heroes? All this is doing, outside of all the inaccuracies that I've just pointed out, and there are many more, this is kicking the can down the road to next year. And then we're sitting here next year and we're doing the same exact thing. This is how we got in this position today. So the bottom line here is we're telling you the truth. It's not popular, but we're not doing it any other way. Our budget is an honest one, and I would just hope that you don't listen to the noise and you listen to the truth. And with that, this public meeting is adjourned. Thank you.